Hello, John Fletcher. It's an absolute pleasure to have you here with us on Cluster View. You're actually in my
Pleasure
house.
being here.
Yeah, mate. We've been talking for a while. You know, we've known each other for very long, but we've had a good chat, and I feel that we've kind of come to the point where we see that we kind of agree on a lot of things. We have very similar kind of ideas about the world, and I found it really uncanny because, you know, considering, you know, where we, you know, it's very hard. Not often you find people that agree with everything or have similar things that you do. But there's a reason for that, and we'll obviously start to understand more so in this conversation that we have today.
Yeah.
But this is a talk with John Fletcher.
Yes.
All right? If you saw my parents, they'd be considered as black. Whereas I was born with ginger hair, very light skin, and freckles. As a result of that, I had a unique insight into what it is like to be mixed or biracial, because people were identifying based on the colour of my skin. Do people identify you based on the colour of your skin?
Yes and no. It depends. I'm quite unique to the fact that despite the way I look, I speak with a strong Jamaican accent. I grew up in Jamaica from a very young age. I was born in Britain. My mom is Irish and my dad is Jamaican. Just like yourself, if I'm with my mom, I look a lot like my mom. I take my complexion from my mom. But if I'm with my dad, I would get the same reaction like you would have, because my dad looks more Afro-Caribbean and doesn't look anything like me. So I did get that response growing up.
Okay. So you say you're more African. So how do you see yourself? So you wouldn't say you look Afro-Caribbean then?
No, I don't. I see myself, as I said earlier, I look a lot like my mom, who is European.
Oh, okay.
Yeah? I don't look like my dad. But I don't see myself as white. My mom is white, and I don't see myself as black because my dad is black.
Well, I'm going to ask you this question. I'm going to go more deeper into questions. Thanks for sharing it with us, but I do want to clarify that later on in the conversation, if that's okay.
Okay.
All right. Both my parents are Jamaican, and even I feel like a fraud trying to put on a Jamaican accent. Yet we see children who clearly aren't black or Jamaican and haven't stepped a foot on Jamaican soil, acting as if they are Jamaican. So how are you received being a Jamaican, but looking as you do?
It depends. As I travel through the world, I'm perceived for who I am, but I tend to find you get it more negative in Britain amongst the black community, where their ignorance towards being growing up in Jamaica and having a Jamaican accent, they seem to assume that everyone in Jamaica is black. Wow, a person who has been to Jamaica and know that the motto of Jamaica is out of many one people.
Absolutely.
And the history of Jamaica being a former British colony made up of people from a wide cross section of the world would understand this. So it has its advantages in the sense that people love my accent, regardless of black, white, green, whatever color they are. And there's people who think I'm a fake because I speak with a Jamaican accent. But they've never been to Jamaica themselves and understand how Jamaica really is made up of diversity.
Yeah, brilliant. When you say diversity, what kind of, can you give us a kind of an idea of that colourful rainbow of
As I said earlier, Jamaica, the motto of Jamaica is out of many one people. And the reason for this is that some of the first people, going back to the Spanish, and then the Spanish brought Africans, then the English took over the island, the English brought Scottish, they brought a lot of Irish people, and over the years you have Syrians, you have Indians from Asia, you have Chinese from, because this was a British colony, it's encapsulated the real empire of Britain and that island, people from all walks of life. And over the years people have migrated to Jamaica from many, many parts of the world. So you go to Jamaica, it's a microcosm of people.
You've got Chinese, you've got
everyone.
French, you've got Chinese, so because obviously European. You've got African people there, obviously.
Oh yeah, I've been there since then.
Yes, you've got Chinese people. You've said that so many times. You've got you've got Arabic people, Muslim people.
Yeah, Syrians. Wow. The Syrians immigrated there as business people. The Indians, people were brought from South India to work on the sugar plantation. They're there. There's people from all walks, all different races, all creed, all colour lives in Jamaica.
Wow, amazing, brilliant. So okay, so how important is identity to you, and what do you identify as?
First and foremost, I identify myself as myself. I don't try to pigeonhole myself. And the reason for this is that I don't claim to be black and I don't claim to be white. Because I feel that I am about myself, my individualism. And the beauty about being of a mixed race person is that I've got the qualities of both races. So I would say I'm a unique, just like in nature, everything in nature, I am unique. And I pride myself on that, and that's my identity.
Brilliant, I love that. I mean, I love the fact that you own that. I find that very few people tend to own it now. I actually saw, there's a girl on TikTok, she's a 25-year-old girl talking about her identity and saying that she didn't want to upset the black side of her family by calling herself, black, and she didn't want to, white, and she didn't want to upset the white side of her family by calling herself black. So she called herself a mixed race. And the fact that you just got away from all that and said, look, I'm just me, and I don't even think about that stuff. Whatever I am is who I am, and I don't care about the colour, I don't care about the rest of it, the creed, I'm just who I am. It's very powerful. And it's very powerful in today's context where we're talking about, being liberated and being free and living in a society that allows us, that affords us that freedom. It's what we've all fought for, right?
Mm-hmm.
So,
no, definitely true.
Yeah, so, the fact that you're doing it. So when you look at people or young people today who basically are finding themselves kind of encased in this identity crisis because they feel they cannot actually break out of what people have pigeonholed them as. How do you feel about that?
Well, I can empathize with them, and the reason why I empathize with them is because when you're young, you haven't formed a strong opinion for yourself. You tend to be spoon-fed from your family, your society, who you are, what you are. It's only when you get to my age and you've lived a long life and you've got the burns and the chips and the cracks through life and you understand what life is all about, then you will understand yourself.
So are you saying that you only found out, you came to this realization at a latter stage
At a latter stage in life, because you have to live life to understand things. When you're young, you really don't understand. You're kind of confused. So who am I? My mom is white, my dad is black. So who am I? Life experience teaches you things to understand yourself and know yourself and understand yourself.
Brilliant. So young people out there watching this, you are very lucky to have gained the wisdom, of our brother John Fletcher, about how he identifies with his himself and how he deals with whatever potential identity crisis you will probably go through. So yeah. So
one last thing to anyone, never try and please no one. Please yourself. Yeah, you can't make people happy. You can only make yourself happy. And when you're happy, the people around you will be happy. Never try to be who people want you to be. Be yourself. Be real.
Yeah. Seriously, be real, which means if you feel happy, whatever makes you happy in yourself, allow that to be who you are. Okay, what is colorism?
Wow. How many years you have to discuss this subject? Colorism to me is
a simple.
Yeah. Colorism to me is, from one aspect, politicians use it to divide and conquer and rule people. Yeah, it's used as a tool by society, walks of society, yeah? Colorism is used to deprive people of their rights. Colorism is a negative thing. It can have positive connotations to it, but it's mainly in our society used as a negative tool. That's how I see it, from my personal experience.
So you're saying it's basically a form of divide and conquer?
Yes. People only bring this up when they want to exclude you.
Mm. Is there any historical context that you can probably add to this conversation?
Well, where do I start? Colorism. Historically, as being a mixed race person, in the colonies, when the white man would back away from being directly involved with dealing with, say, the plantation, he would put the coloured man in the middle to be the overseer, and then when things go bad, the coloured man get blamed for everything. And I think historically that's why the shade of our skin in all nations This is not just a black and white thing in all nations. If you go to Asia, you'll find the Asian people look up to the people with a lighter shade and look down to the people, the darker skinned Asians. In any society you go, it's just a way of dividing people to make people think that they're superior to other. And it's a negative, it's a seed that's planted in people's minds to keep them down. Yeah? But as I said to you earlier, as long as you know yourself and you be strong in your mind, you never have to have that problem. It's believing in yourself.
Wow, so you're saying that basically, what I'm gathering from what you're saying is that the empire or the slave, whoever it was, the slave trade, they used it as a tool to separate people, to control people. I understand. I know, again, I've heard stories about in Africa, similar things going on, African colonization. And so therefore, you don't have to even maintain your own holdings because the people that you put in that place will do that. But those people tend to be the children of the slave holders. So they were willing to sacrifice their own children, you're saying?
Oh, yeah. But don't forget, they may have been the children, but in the context in which, like, for example, there was once an American president who had mixed race children, and he didn't really give them the full rights as a citizen. He gave them a certain amount of freedom, but he didn't give them rights. And all through history, regardless of whether it be the black and white or whatever culture where the masters had children with their servants or their slaves, their children were never given full rights. They were given partial rights, and they were used as overseer to be the buffer between the two races. So people of mixed heritage has always been used in a negative way to be the buffer. And then when things go bad, the oppressed people would turn against these people. And then the people at the top, who were the masters, would then only use these people to do their dirty work. So people, I hear
you. Okay, and I heard and I noticed there are accounts about this stuff. So anyone who wants to look online, find out, do your own research, please do. There are loads of accounts out there in history books. Go to the libraries, do your research. But when I think about also colorism, if I frame it in today's context, when you think about young people today, colorism is used in a very different way. People, mixing with each other. You got the black kids or black brothers and sisters on one side, alienating the mixed race children or biracial children, and you got the white kids on the other side. And people say there's diversity and there's mix in the UK, of course, but at the end of the day, people do this unconscious bias, right?
Oh yeah, it's all ingrained in our societies. It's ingrained in our society, it's ingrained in our religion, it's in ignorance. Ignorance is widespread throughout all creed, all colour. And
you're saying potentially started from that. Is it something?
No. Racism far.
Not racism, colorism.
Colorism. It goes way before slavery. This goes back to the beginning of time, because if you understand one group of people fighting over the same resources, this is why racism exists. Is ignorance. Yeah. And instead of looking at the man and say, or the woman and say, you know what, you achieve more than me, or you're better at doing something at me, they find something negative. And it's always the first thing that comes to mind, because this is the difference. They play upon the differences. And that's what racism is.
Like a woman being called a witch back in the old days.
Exactly. Yeah. It's just the differences that they play upon. And the differences is that we're different races. So that's the first thing people pick up on to start play on against.
So it's because of his race, because of the colour of his skin, because of the colour of his eyes. Wow, interesting. But colorism is, in my mind's eye, colorism is a very dangerous force. I mean, I have mixed race children. So for me, and I know as me growing up myself, what it was like to be, as I started with explaining there's differences in me, having red hair, and I know how people treated me differently. My life was hard. It was much harder. I see my white brothers and sisters today, and I spoke to one. In fact, he just recently I met years ago, and knew when he was a kid, and his story is different to my story. Grew up from the same path, but because of the fact that he was white, he was able to open doors to a different world.
Yes.
Because I was black and, you know, and whatever, going for whatever, I was going to be going for a complete different route, and there's nothing I could do about it. And the people of my darker skinned brothers and sisters were not looking out for me in that world. I mean, I had a few, don't get me wrong, I've got brothers, I love them to the core, but there was definitely, I was not as important, and I clearly felt that. And it meant that I ended up in gangs. I ended up being very, very confused.
Because you have to prove yourself.
I can't, who am I trusting? Who do I trust? Whatever. And my colour would have been an issue. And I know that. And as I'm getting, like you talked about getting older and seeing things differently and seeing the light, I'm starting to see that my colour had a big part to play in where I ended up in my life. Can you imagine this? I'm feeling guilty of the fact that my shade of my skin is potentially affording me, in certain circles, certain opportunities.
I may give you an example, yeah? I can get on the phone and I can talk to you in a deep Jamaican accent. Or I may answer the phone, good afternoon, and I'll speak to you quite eloquently. And when you meet me, you'll address me and you'll deal with me differently.
Based on how you speak?
Based on how I speak. So if I spoke to someone and then I meet them in a room, they'd think I am from Italy or they think I'm from Greece. And I'm treated differently. And then if I come out with a Jamaican accent, they'll be partially confused as to why I have a Jamaican accent, because they assume that if you have a Jamaican accent, you must be black.
Wow.
Yeah?
Absolutely, yeah.
So it's how it, you know, it's
It's
always perceived.
All
It's always perceived in
associations,
people's minds.
Yeah, yeah. It's absolutely associations and what they've been taught and what they believe, and then they think, oh my God, he's less than me as a result of that. Incredible stuff. I hope you guys listen to this. It's a large space it's so wide, you know, how we are treated for all sorts of reasons. Can you tell us a real story about Bob Marley?
Yeah. When he passed away and his body was flown from Miami to Jamaica, on the day that he was buried, it's like Jamaica come to a standstill. Really did. And it's like everyone, you know, people's emotion, you know, people just chilled. There was a saying back then, you know, they said even the gun them never barked that day there. It just meant that the country was quite in a somber mood, and it was a true reflection of an icon being buried. Yeah? I'll give you an example. When the Queen died the other day and she got buried, it's like you could see elements of the society who show respect, who were just chilled. And there was elements of the society who, it's like it didn't bother them. They were getting about their everyday life. Now, Jamaica, you didn't have that. Everyone was one with it. Wow. Everyone was one with it.
Such a special man.
And yeah, it's a very special moment. I'll never think, personally for me, I'll never see anything like that again.
With the level of respect that
the level of respect that was given to that brother.
Yeah, no one's going to reach that.
And it made me, and I'm going to tell you something personally, it made me very proud of being someone of mixed race. Because I know this might sound like a cliche, but he will always be my icon in a sense where he's more than just a musician to me. He made me believe in myself as a mixed race person and not really lost and confused. Because another thing I can draw from this as well is that I'm not saying that being a mixed race person I am better than anyone, but I do notice that mixed race people per se, percentage in the population of the world, we do excel and we do stand out. And I think the reason for that is, from what I gathered from Bob Marley upbringing, coming from Trenchtown and a tough life, and how he had to put black shoe polish on his skin to fit in, made him work harder to achieve what he had achieved. And I draw inspiration from that.
So he tried to, so basically, to say that he had to put shoe polish on his skin to fit in, kind of makes you think that, you know, he didn't feel he could fit in. Was it because, in your mind, that he just wanted to fit in because he felt like he was out of it, or was it because he was treated differently? Well, you know... Are we going to get another true story about Bob Marley now?
No, I'm going to keep it short and sweet. This applies to any race in any part of the world, yeah? If you're different and you try to fit in, you have to do something extra to fit in. Yeah? And I'll give you another example. Yellow Man is an albino from Jamaica, yeah? A lot of people never give this man recognition. He's the only albino person who has won a Grammy, who's reached to the level. And this give credit to Jamaica, that it at least allow people, regardless of how you look, a chance to be yourself and to shine out.
Amazing.
Yeah?
It's amazing. I absolutely love Jamaica for that, because obviously, you know, in certain parts of the world, you know, albinos are under threat and so forth, and seen stigmatized. And I'm not saying I don't know anything about how Jamaica sees albinos, but they basically
no, they don't. No. Jamaica don't. We don't. That voodoo stuff and killing people.
No, what I mean is about the respect, because he's a bloody star.
No, he's a star. But what I'm trying to say to you, Jamaica, is we have this mentality in Jamaica. All right, so he might have been, regardless of who you are, but we say, but at least he's him good at what I'm doing, you know.
Oh yes. He fought through whatever it was, and he
I can see the parallel with him and Bob Marley, in the sense that despite the way they are and how they look or who they were at the time, they were given the chance to shine.
It's like Eminem, isn't it?
Exactly, the same thing as well. Yeah. And I'm sure there's thousands and thousands of individuals from all walks of life, all creed, all colour, who are the minority, who in a situation where shine through, their true creativity shine through. Because if a man is talented or a woman is talented, you can't stop them.
Do we see a blackwashing of history in terms of achievements by mixed race people, do you think?
Yeah, unfortunately we do. And recently it's been a shame that, talking about Bob Marley, what I don't like it today world is that a black man can play a mixed race man, but a mixed race man can't play a black man. I think that's wrong. And that's wrong. And there's a lady who came from Jamaica in the Crimean times when Napoleon was fighting. Basically, Florence Nightingale got all the credit. And then they say, oh, this black lady was along, and then they try to discredit her and say she was a sandwich seller. And then they don't no one does bring up the point that she's mixed race. They say she's black. Yeah, we have to give credit where credit is due.
Do you know the name of that person at all?
I think it's Seymour. I think her name was Seymour. I just can't remember it off. I can't remember it off the top of my name. But what I'm saying is this: mixed race people, we deserve our credit in history. Yeah, don't wash us out of the picture. Yeah, don't choose our part for us. We are who we are. We're not telling them what to do with ourselves, so don't tell us what to do with ourselves.
Yeah, because obviously, if you think about people like W.E.B. Du Bois, Frederick Douglass, I mean, no one knows that they're mixed race. I didn't even know that. Well, I didn't know. I knew Bob Marley was mixed race, but most people did not know he was mixed race. And when they did the musical, the British musical, you know, the one they did, it was long-standing, long-running musical, Bob Marley's story. They used a darker skinned brother to play that part. And I felt that was very weird. I thought, but isn't this an opportunity now to really show the contributions of mixed race people? But they chose to not do that. Latterly, they basically brought in a lighter skinned person to play the role. But from the early stages, he was identified and defined as being a dark skinned man. Then when I spoke to people, white brothers and sisters, about, you know, asked them, like, you know, whatever it is, or I put a little article out and people responded. And they didn't know that Bob Marley was mixed race. It's like, can you not know? That's crazy.
You know, to be honest with you, yeah, and I know some people mean well. When you start having period dramas and you start putting black people in period dramas, yeah, you're confusing the youngsters then. You're making us look stupid. You make us, speaking as a person.
I mean, like playing queens and playing different.
And putting black people in parts of history where they never existed. It's fairy tale.
Is that blackwashing history, do you think?
I think it's
just inclusion.
They're trying to do something good.
They think,
but in a sense where you're not making something realistic. When you're making a period drama, that's why it's called a period drama. It's referring to that period in history. And when you try to mix it up like that, you're just doing stupidity. It's better you start from scratch and call it what it is and say this is 21st century and this is how we would have liked to have seen history look. But don't mix it up because you just confuse the youth then.
Yeah, I hear you. But people would say that you're from a different generation, so your ideas are backward.
Everybody entitled to their own opinion, but the facts are the facts.
Okay. All right. Do you think there's a link between crime and culture? And if so, how would you combat it?
There's definitely a link between crime and culture, because if you imagine in some communities, we're talking about the third and fourth generation gangsters. Yeah? Organized crime, it runs in families, it runs in groups, yeah? And it continues on till this day. They won't break the cycle because there's money to be made, easy money to be made. They won't break the cycle because of the prestige that goes along with the street cred. Yeah? The youngsters nowadays, because the country, this Britain itself today is becoming a third world country fast. People can't, parents have to go to work for 9 to 5, so they don't have the time. The people at the bottom don't have the time and the money to give to their children what they want. We live in a consumer society, and children growing up wanting things. The parents can't afford to give it to them. And then the dealers know this. So what they do, they pick on the children, and they get the children to get involved with crime. And this only happens in certain communities, because in certain other communities, you wouldn't get an individual who's a kingpin going to people's children in the suburbs, getting them to push drugs. This can only happen in the ghetto, where poor people are. And poor people, children, regardless of creed and colour, will always fall victim to this rubbish. So it does have a link.
Wow, thank you so much. Brilliant.